morning, everybody. Welcome to Virtual Fence Foundations. We're so excited you could all be here with us today. This is our final episode, and it's crazy to think that we're here and it's already the end of October. My name is Caitlin Dosler, and I am the Virtual Fence Program Manager with the University of Missouri Center for Regenerative Agriculture. And today we are so excited to bring you this episode. We're going to be hearing from three out of the four virtual fence companies currently available here in the United States. And they are the three awesome companies that we're working with for the Center's Virtual Fence Project. So we're going to have a rep here today from eShepard, Halter, and Nofence. And we also have a producer that is currently utilizing the technology from each of the companies here today to tell you a little bit more about their operation and answer any questions that you guys will have. I'm going to throw it over to Shelby to let you know how the webinar is going to run today, and we should be good to go.
So we are going to start and we're going to have Nofence talk, and then we're going to start with the provider and then the producer, and then we're going to go to Halter and then eShepard, and finally we're going to open it up to your guys' questions.
Perfect. Thanks, Shelby. So today, first up, we are going to hear from Nofence. Awesome. And I will let Megan take it from here.
Wonderful. I'll kick it off for all of us today. My name is Megan Filbert. I am the Community and Partnerships Manager with Nofence. I've been with the company for 3.5 years and very happy to be invited by the Center for Regenerative Agriculture. So thank you very much. So with Nofence virtual fence technology, there's value in every acre. With Nofence, you can create virtual boundaries anytime from anywhere. And that it really plays to an advantage in landscapes that are traditionally very difficult to fence physically. So that would be like mountainsides, steep land, forested land, rocky lands, wide open, vast rangelands where there's no fencing or a lack of fencing, and also in wetlands or floodplains. Really, Nofence provides flexibility without compromise and helps bring more pasture into play. You can unlock new acres that haven't been grazed before, saving the time and the labor that it would take to physically fence it. So Nofence, it's really a plug and play system. It's very simple. We make two different collar versions. The small collar on the left is for sheep and goats. The larger collar is for cattle. Those collars communicate to an app on your cell phone. And our system does not come with base stations or towers. So that means some cell service is required, at least 1 to 2 bars. But you can also operate this where there are some dead zones. We say we would love to have 50% of your pastures have at least a bar of cell service. And how that works is that the collars themselves are connecting to cell towers, and then those cell towers connect to satellites in our atmosphere, and that connects back down through the cloud to the app on your phone. We recently implemented something called HerdNet technology, and now our collars communicate with one another. It's a mesh network technology. They're communicating through Bluetooth instead of previously when each individual collar had to connect to a cell tower. Now only one collar connects to a cell tower and then talks to all the other collars in the herd, which makes pasture moves much, much faster. We're talking a matter of seconds. And something I want to draw your attention to is the Nofence app. So this is some simple screenshots of our mobile app. You can create very interesting, flexible types of pastures, sizes of pastures. They can be in all different shapes and sizes, even circles. Within the app, you can look at individual animal behavior. So you can see every time an individual animal, how many times it's been received an audio cue or an electrical pulse. You can look at the battery life for every collar at any time in the app. And the other features the app comes with is every time you open your app, you're going to be greeted with a heat map of where your animals have spent the most time over the last 24 hours, 48 hours, or over the last week. You always receive real-time escape notifications, and every time an animal gets an electrical pulse or an audio cue. You can create exclusion zones, so you can exclude sensitive areas within every active pasture. You can have multiple active pastures at any one time with different groups of animals assigned to those pastures. You can look at the statistics and analysis of individual animal behaviors. So you can tell who is potentially in heat or is lame or sick. We have recently implemented anomaly detection. So you'll receive notifications if something seems off with the pattern of behavior from an individual animal. And then if a collar has detected no movement, you'll receive a real-time notification about that as well. So just a laundry list of things that you can do with Nofence. And just to mention a few here is many of our users are obviously implementing more rotations into their grazing system. They are practicing targeted grazing for vegetation management. We have many goat farmers that we're working with. And obviously with Nofence making the small ruminant and cattle collar, you can practice multi-species grazing in any one of your pastures. This is great for cover crop grazing. We have many users, for example, in California and Western states using these collars for grazing for wildfire mitigation. We've now taken on some solar grazers and have some new projects there. We have folks working in agroforestry systems with silvopasture and some folks practicing winter bale grazing with virtual fencing. So this is a snapshot of our pricing. So the prices you see here are the first, it's the collar, the hardware, plus the first year subscription. And then in years 2 and beyond, there's an ongoing subscription fee, and that is broken down at the bottom left here. And so annually, that's $45 per collar per year when you have 5 to 49 collars. And then when you have 50 and above collars, the price decreases to $32 per collar per year. Our collars do come with a 5-year warranty. We also have financing available. There's different financing options when you are in the online store. All of our collars are purchased through a one-stop shop. It's an online store that we have. And when you go to checkout, there are different financing options presented to you at that time. And at this point, we have almost 200,000 animals with collars globally. That represents over 8,000 customers, and these collars have logged over 700 million hours of graze time because we've been commercially available in Europe for quite some time. And since we opened commercial sales in the United States, which was about 10 months ago, we've grown to over 600 customers in the US with about 8,000 collars on livestock. Obviously, that is increasing by the day, and this is just a snapshot a couple weeks ago of what our grazing map in the United States looked like. And so for those who want to take the next step and are ready to get started, please visit nofence.co and choose the United States drop-down option, and you will fill out a very brief survey, which is essentially our registering your interest form that goes to us, and then a sales rep will give you a call. And that's it from me.
Thank you, Megan. Josh, you are up. Tell us a little bit about your operation and your usage of virtual fence.
Yeah, so as Megan was talking there, I was thinking like all of those things that she said have been very much my experience, especially the plug and play. It was very nice. So Caitlin showed up. We were in, probably 30 to 40 minutes. We had sheep collared. They're back. They're out they're out in the pasture, and honestly, it was working kind of like they said it was. There was a short break-in period, which was very logical, especially with the fencing that we have in a certain area there. Yeah, so like the plug and play feature is very nice. The app is intuitive. I will say what I enjoy most as a producer about it, you see your operation there up in the top right, that's us collaring sheep. I was a little worried about the process there. We put them on some younger animals, which we weren't supposed to, but we just went back through and opened those up as they went. You'll notice they're holding them up well. They don't seem to be bothered to the sheep, even the younger ones. We're grazing them in agroforestry systems usually. We do individually protect trees, but then this is nice because we're able to, like if we're in an alley cropping setup where we have wide trees, we can use these in between. That's within the margin of error for our grazing scenario. Like probably the best for us, and I think the best, the best bang for our buck is that we can really make those odd kind of creative shapes. In a lot of our pastures, like a lot of people, we have like a central waterer, and this enables us to, instead of have to put up, one strand on one, if we're going to wagon wheel off of that waterer, we can put one strand of fence like on one end, but then we'd have to have 4 strands of poly fence on different parts of that. So this saves us a bunch of time and even just infrastructure in portable fencing. So that's the biggest one. And it also saves us that pain in the butt scenario in which we're trying to run poly fence up and down over terraces and we run out of posts. And so the time savings are big on that as well. You'll notice here, like this is a map of one of the times. Actually, it's where they are right now. So we're able to go inside of our boundaries and put them in small areas. This is a 15-acre paddock divided into a 3-acre section that they're going to be for 4 or 5 days. If we were doing something different, we can actually go in and split off of these. And you notice the water is on the far right side of the paddock. So instead of taking 4 fence lines to strip graze across this, which we'll be doing when we bale graze here in the next couple months, we're actually able to do this all from the touch of our phone. It's also nice, like my sister takes care of the sheep. She's out of town for the weekend and she can see exactly what's going on at all times, like for these animals. Overall, I've enjoyed the experience and there's really nice applications, especially if you're not set up already for interior fencing like we are often. The heat map, we use the heat map often just to kind of see where the sheep have been often, and we can see, okay, well, why are they grazing this? We'll go out and get into a field, find that real location, and see, oh, this is where the best forage was, or oh, this is where they always lay. Which actually brings us into one, it's a minor issue for us, really. We notice there's a lot of mornings where our sheep will lay up against the edge of a pasture, up against a fence, and they'll all be there in a group. And it seems like we get a little satellite drift, and because every so often we'll end up with 6 or 7 sheep just getting zapped right off first in the morning. I was just talking to Megan about it yesterday, and she's like, "Oh, well, that's actually something we can work with. There's ways to change the sensitivity of these collars, and they've been very helpful in helping us figure those things out. So, yeah, overall, very positive. I think there's a lot of different usages for it."
Thank you, Josh and Megan. All right. So now we're going to move on to our next company and we're going to start with Halter.
Hi, everyone. My name is Elena Link. I am the Missouri Territory Manager for Halter. I have been with Halter coming on 6 months now. So I graduated from the university in May, University of Missouri, and started in June. And I'm super excited to be here today. And thank you all for joining. Shelby and Caitlin, thank you for putting this on. This is certainly something that's super helpful for producers. So I grew up on my grandparents' cow-calf operation, grew up in 4-H and FFA, showing livestock. Certainly have a love for the cattle industry and ag, which kind of led me to Halter. So that's my background, a little bit about Halter. So Halter is originally a New Zealand company, started in 2016, started from a dairy farmer's son, and now has grown to over 200 employees across 3 countries. So super exciting. We're super excited to have nearly 600,000 cattle collared across those 3 countries. So certainly growing and exciting times to be a part of. So a little bit how Halter works. We have 3 main components of our system: the collar, which sits on the cow, the tower, the base station, and then the app, which is on your phone. So a little bit about the collar. So here's a good snapshot of our collar. A couple of key things to point out here is those collars give you live GPS location of all your animals on your operation. And they're also solar powered, so unlimited battery life, rechargeable, continuously charging. They're also ergonomic, lightweight, and durable. So really slick design, super comfortable, fits well on the cattle. They seem to get along with them pretty well. The collars are guaranteed for life, so our warranty does cover them. We pride ourselves in taking care of our customers and making sure that we put a product in their hand that that we back. And then another thing about the collars is the 3 different sensory cues are designed for happy and healthy cattle. So our collars are designed to emit directional cues from those collars. So when those animals walk up across their virtual line, that collar actually gives them directional cues telling them, do they need to go right? Do they need to go left? Which way do they need to go in order to go back into their area that they need to be contained in? So directional cues. And then another one that I'd like to highlight here is our vibrational cue. So it gives you the ability to actually shift cattle remotely. So let's say you have an 80-acre pasture, you want to divide it up into 4 20 acres. You can shift those cattle around that pasture using the vibration cue. When those collars start to vibrate, those cattle know, hey, it's time to move. I'm going to get new grass. Let's move to the next section. So this image I wanted to throw up here. This is a graze line out of mush rush ranches. So as you can see in this image here, the accuracy down to precision accuracy is pretty evident here. We can see that graze line really well. Our system allows those cattle to graze up right to that virtual line. So think of it as cattle being allowed to graze right up to an electric fence, right up to a perimeter fence. It's giving you that same flexibility and that same idea, allowing those animals to truly utilize as much of the pasture as you want them to. Another great thing I'd like to point out here, and I think this is a great benefit of any virtual fencing system, is the ability to have great manure distribution in a rotational grazing system. And I think this image showcases it really well. You can see all of those cow patties evenly distributed across the pasture. Certainly a great thing in a cover crop type system where you're grazing on corn stalks. Putting that fertilizer. I know Matthew's talked about it before. Kind of using that free fertilizer, right, and putting it back into those crop ground. So certainly a great use case there for it.
All right. Thank you, Elena. It is now John's turn from Rolling Prairie Ranch to tell us about their utilization of Halter.
Morning, everybody. My name's John Leakin. We're northern Missouri, and we started learning about virtual fence about 3 or 4 years ago through somebody, and their first experience wasn't very good, and they put Halter collars on about a year ago, and their experience really changed on what they were able to do, and it really interested us. Went to a field day in January, and by February we decided we were doing it. We decided to jump all in. We were running a pretty substantial commercial herd. We collared all our cows started June 30th and finished about the middle of July. So we've been collaring, where are we, 3-4 months in now. Been super happy with the Halter product and what we've been able to do. Before Halter, we've been rotational grazing for 30 years. We set up where we were moving cows anywhere from once a day to once a week, depending on the paddock size and things like that. Ideally, we would have been moving cows. We'd like to move cows once a day. For us, it was infrastructure became an issue as we increased our size of our ranch to try to get to where we could actually move cows once a day. So we got away from that. Since we put the collars on the cows, we're to where we're moving cows 2, 3, 4 times a day. We're basically strip grazing everything that we graze. Dramatically increased our utilization by having Halter, how much further our grass goes for everything. Loved the Halter product. It was fairly easy to train the cows. We spent 2 days on most of our cows training was all we did. Took me a lot longer to learn to use the app proficiently. I'm real good at it now, but I was frustrated the first week. Cows, after 2 days, they didn't seem to care. They don't pay any attention. We don't even pay attention to the collars on the cows. It's just part of the cows now, and it's been no big issue at all. And that's part of the reason we went to Halter. We really like the design of the collars. It's simple. It's efficient on the cow. Works really good. Some of the big benefits we've seen is we've really increased grass utilization. One thing is our cows are a lot calmer. Our cows are being used to moving at least once a day. Every time you went out with a four-wheeler or a gator, they want to be moved to grass. It didn't matter if you did it an hour ago or 10 hours ago. When they heard it, they thought it was time for new grass. Once our cows were collared, it took about 2 weeks, and they disassociate it with anything with that being associated with moving grass. So now I can go out, check cows. They don't pay any attention to the four-wheeler. They don't associate getting grass with it. So it's been a wonderful cow management tool. Cows have really made it easier to take care of them. They don't bother you. We fall calf, made fall calving wonderful, has made it a lot easier to fall calf. The cows, you go out there and you just ride through them and check them. Nobody gets up, nobody thinks anything about it. It made it easier to find baby calves. Cows like to always hide the calves in the new tall grass. You give them a new break of grass, they eat out around the calves. You got calves exposed, so that really has worked good. Everybody asks us financially why how did we justify or anything? We never sat down and figured the numbers, but we could just, from our experience of grazing over years, we knew by utilization that we could really increase our stocking rate. And I haven't sat down and figured out what we can go to, but I can definitely say the justification to do it is easy by how much further your grass will go, whether you're going to say feed and hay or you're going to run more cows or whatever. But it's been a heck of a management tool for us. It's allowing us to graze how we always wanted to, but we feasibly couldn't. And prime example, when we put cows on, we had 4 groups when we collared before we started calving. And I was moving them 4 times a day, spending about 40 minutes a day on my phone doing that. I couldn't have physically done that if I worked all day at it. I couldn't have moved them cows that many times in a day. Is more than one person could do. So that's been a huge benefit. Some of the pictures we got up here now, there's some warm season grass, and you can kind of see some of the grazing lines. Halter super accurate. The cows get within a foot of that line pretty easily. It's amazing what the cows will do as far as staying in place and what you feasibly can do with that. We're wagon wheeling 150 acre pastures where before it was impossible to. You spend a lot of time if you even trying to break it into 40s, and now we're giving cows grass 3 times, 4 times a day off of it, and we're getting we're kind of strip grazing and getting the hoof action effect from it. And I can get 500,000 pounds, 1,000,000 pounds to the acre if I wanted to, as far as hoof action. So that's a little bit about our operation.
Thank you, John. All right, next company up is eShepard, and we're going to start with the rep, JC.
Hey everybody, I am JC Ellsworth. I live in Western South Dakota. We ranch with my husband's family, and I've been with the eShepard team going on about 15 months now. So my husband and I inquired on the rancher side, and that's how I ended up with eShepard. And I'm happy to report we just got our neck bands a couple of weeks ago. So I will also get to be joining the producer side very soon. So a little bit about eShepard. We are part of Gallagher. So you might be familiar with Gallagher as the fencing company. We've been around going on 86 plus years now. And this is our eShepard device on a bull. So eShepard is specific for cattle only, but you can put it on cows, you can put it on bulls, whatever your needs might be there. The device is using many components of our other Gallagher products. And so it does hang under the neck and has the larger solar panel, very similar technology for from our fence energizers, both the solar panel and the battery. And so we are expecting about 7 to 10 years a lifespan out of these devices, just due to our experience using those. When you put it on the animal, you can kind of see on the top of that bull's neck, there is a buckle on each side there, so you can clip it together, adjust the chains. But then there is an orange rubber top strap on the top that is a breakaway, so kind of just a safety feature. If a cow would get hung up on anything, she's able to pull away and break away. So some details on eShepard. As I mentioned, it's solar charged and it has a long life battery. We have two different options. So depending on if you have reliable cell service or not, will kind of depend on which route we can go with you. So we do have the direct to cellular neckband where you're just purchasing that neckband and we're just communicating right with the cell tower. Or we also have the base station system if you don't have as reliable of cell service. So if you're unsure, your eShepard representative can also kind of talk you through that process to determine which is best for you. We're using audio and pulse stimulus as well. So our pulse is emitted through the chain that you saw on that bull. So we are getting great contact with those cattle and seeing, great containment because of that. As far as waterproofing, they have an IPX7, so they can be submerged in water for at least 30 minutes. We have lots of customers in the Midwest this summer. They were sending pictures of cattle standing in water and things like that. And it was great to see, and we weren't having any issues there. And then as far as wintertime, last year was our first winter in North America. And happy to report it did go well. The coldest a customer reported was -30 temps. And their neckbands were still reporting. And so this will be our second winter, and we've got lots more customers across the US. But we know with about 4 hours of sunlight a day, those neckbands can maintain a full charge. And if there isn't sunlight for a few days, they're still able to hold on to that battery and continue charging. Our neckbands come with a 3-year warranty, and we also are working on some behavior and health features that will probably, the initial round of that will come out yet the end of this year, but working towards detecting things like lameness, pregnant and not pregnant, and then calving. So going back to our two different systems, just to kind of give a visual. So we also, we have a mobile app, and then we also have, we call it a web app. It's just a website. So every producer seems to kind of have their preference on whether they like to manage, sit down at the desktop and manage on the computer or just manage from their phone. But you're able to draw virtual fences on either side and do whatever works best for you. But then once you activate that fence, we're just sending it up to the cell tower and then right down to that cow wearing the neckband. And if you can advance one more, we're just going to add in that base station there. So again, we can go either or, whichever works for the cell coverage in your grazing areas. And the cows can roam out of cell service for some period of time. And same with that base station system. They're storing the virtual fence information in the collar itself. And so they're able to, we don't need, 100% cell service across that grazing area. And here's just some examples of, so this is from our system, and this is a pretty simple, drawing, but the orange line is the active virtual fence. And this is some cows kind of on the edge of that line. So the dotted lines are just showing where they had opened up new breaks. And this producer was actually at the very beginning training his cows. But those cows you can see are just on that far end, basically always where that better forage is. And then as soon as he'll open that next break, we do not alert them. But we have seen when producers are grazing like this, it doesn't take too long because those cows are testing that virtual fence line because there is better forage on the other side. You can do multiple herds. And so this customer was getting really crazy running 5 different herds within pretty close proximity of each other. And actually the 2 with the red arrows on them were overlapping water. And so it's kind of hard to see in this photo, but where that arrow was pointing to is the water tank. And so, those green cows go in and share a water tank with those purple cows, but then they're both going out right in their correct pastures that they're assigned to. Another cool use is just seeing people graze, the edges of pivots. I've seen people grazing in between cornfields and things like that with smaller herds just to make use of some of that forage that's never been grazed before. And then with our exclusion zones, this was a customer that drew a heart just for fun, I think, but you're also able to draw an exclusion zone within your virtual fence area. So if there are waterways or any sensitive areas you want to protect within your grazing areas, you can draw an exclusion area. And one more customer, he was doing very intensive. This customer is in Wisconsin, and he is extending his virtual fence about 4 to 6 times a day in the peak grazing season. And so again, you can see his cattle are kind of on that way end of that live virtual fence. And he's just really making them utilize that forage before opening up that new break. And he is able to use our schedules. And so just scheduling this all in his web app. Then one last thing, this is just a producer in Montana. So also with our schedules, he was opening up new breaks of grass every 12 hours. And he said he would just sit down, one night a week and schedule this all out and really didn't need to worry about moving fence, for that next week. And so the cows are just finding that new grass and then going back to water. And then he would bump them over to the next cell over. So just kind of what that movement pattern looks like. So with eShepard, producers own their hardware. And so it's a one-time infrastructure purchase. So the things I have highlighted in the yellow is what your initial startup cost would be. We do have tiered pricing based on how many neck bands you'd be purchasing. So that yellow is kind of your one-time, and then that green pricing is your monthly data charge. So that will vary a little bit between the two systems. But that's kind of your only ongoing cost after you own the hardware. And as I mentioned, we do have that 3-year warranty as well. And here's my contact information, or you can go to eShepard.com. And we also have a form on there and fill that out if you have any questions. Thanks.
Thank you, JC. All right, Chris, it is up to you now. So tell us a little bit about yourself and your operation and how you're using eShepard.
Yeah, so my name is Christopher Hudson from Middletown, Missouri, which is in East Central Missouri. Run a registered Angus operation, but we also are a diversified farming operation as well. We both row crop as well as run beef cattle. And then also I do some ag retail as well. So have quite a few irons in the fire, but we got started through the Circle program. I put collars on. I believe it was September 20th. So we're right at 40 days in, or just before the 20th, right at 40 days in. It's been operation changing just in this 40 days that we've had the technology. It's just changed how we've done things with this set of cows. You can kind of see there, we collared the day of collaring, and then trained on some sorghum Sudan grass that was planted after wheat on some row crop ground. Basically, we were strip grazing it before we got the collars and moving every 2 to 3 days. Physical fences, and when we got the collars, trained on it, and then we went to basically moving cows every 3 to 4 hours, 4 to 5 moves a day, depending on the forage. And you can see there, the picture on the left is a snapshot of my mobile app. That would have been grazing that Sudan grass about a week ago. The dash lines, of course, as JC explained, are former moves, and then the two solid orange lines, we were in the middle of a move, and then the remaining dash lines there to the south are my scheduled moves for the next 2 days. I love it. I don't even think about it anymore. I can go into the app, schedule for 4 to 5 days. And I don't even think about that set of cows much anymore, to be honest with you. I check them once a day and they kind of manage themselves. It's been really, really nice. So this set of cows we put them on is also fall calving cows. We calve primarily early September, but here in the last 2 weeks, we've of course had a few stragglers as we finish up calving. And the picture on the right, it was awesome. As we're wrapping up harvest and hitting the soybeans pretty hard, I had 2 or 3 cows in this group of 42 left to calve. Instead of checking them 2 to 3 times a day, I was using the web app basically to check those cows and to see if anybody was off by themselves calving. So you can see that solid pink dot is a cow that actually calved, was able to get off the combine, go check, as she was calving, go check her instead of doing it every single day and not having a clue when it was going to happen. I'd say it was saving me 40 minutes a day just having that web app and being able to monitor where those cows are. So kind of a game changer there. And there you've got some pictures of what we were grazing, that same field where the screenshots were from. And you can see us kind of marching across. I think the picture there on the right was taken the same day as the screenshot with all my breaks. They hold the line very, very well. It's just been awesome. I think also for us, from a soil aspect, my manure distribution is quite a bit better, especially, and that's important to me on my row crop ground too. Instead of spending as much time in the trees when we're moving, through the heat of the day there in the middle of September, when we were moving, every 3 hours, it kind of makes those cows go out and graze more through the heat of the day. And I absolutely love that aspect. I'm a huge fan. So I think that's kind of it for me.
So I think that's it for everybody. So I think we're going to start working through the questions now. So the very first one is, what kind of information can you gather from the heat map and what do you find it useful for? So who would like to start us off?
I think Matthew asked that one back when we were talking about Nofence, but I know some of the other systems also utilize heat maps, so feel free to jump in.
Megan had a good response in just saying, seeing where animals avoid and kind of looking at those areas. So I do agree with that. And I think the big thing is just being able to see those underutilized areas and maybe there's some work that you can improve in those spots.
Yeah, the nice thing, so like I was mentioning that like we can see where sheep lay down and spend a lot of time where they lay. So then we can actually go in and we can say, well, we don't want them to lay at the same place every night because that creates a dead zone often. So then we can exclude those places where they are a lot if we really, if we start to see that we're worried about that.
I think those are both really, really great points. I know the heat map was definitely something I even utilized when I was researching the technology in grad school, just to be able to go out and see where your livestock are spending the majority of their time and kind of like Josh said, be able to fence them in or out of different areas and control those moves a little bit better to where if they haven't totally utilized an area yet, making sure it gets fully utilized before stuff gets moved.
Really exciting things with the heat map. So I'm sure that there's lots of people very interested in that data. So the another one that we got is, can you get them to eat more stemmy grass since you've started moving them multiple times a day? And this one was for John specifically, but we can totally open it up after John gives us an answer.
Yeah, they'll definitely eat things they normally wouldn't, or not that they wouldn't eat, but they'd rather not eat. The more breaks you give them a day, the more they'll clean things up. And for us, that's actually been a benefit because I'm getting cows to eat more fiber, get more fiber into them, slowing passage rate down. So it's actually putting condition on our cows. I make them, when we're strip grazing like that, we're set up, utilizing them as much as we can and doing long rest periods. We're doing 60, 90-day rest periods. So I don't worry about taking my regrowth as much because it's going to come back for us with that length of period. But getting that lower quality forage into them has actually been a benefit. And I kind of compare it's kind of like feeding a TMR to beef cows or dairy cows. When you make them clean that lower stuff up, it's they're not just getting really good stuff at one time, and the next time they're having to eat stuff they don't really like. They just take it all up front, and I think it makes a big benefit.
Anybody else? Chris, I know you showed a picture of some pretty stemmy grass. So I don't know if you want to talk a little bit about utilizing that sorghum sedan grass.
Yeah, so I was I was telling Caitlin yesterday. So I kind of had rough figures in my head before we put the collars on. I was getting about 90 grazing days an acre on that sorghum, and it's sorghum sedan grass mixed with some sun hemp. So there's some protein in there too. But anyway, I was getting about 90 grazing days. After I got the cows acclimated to the collars, and we went from, a 2 to 3 day move when I was using physical fence to the collars with moving every 3 to 4 hours. I think I was up to about 170 grazing days an acre. It wasn't quite double, is kind of what I was figuring. And if you were to look at the cows, we're finished calving now, and my feed intake has increased dramatically. A lot of those calves are 30, 60 days old, so we're at peak lactation. The cows have not went backwards whatsoever. I've never had my fall cows in this good a shape. And we've grazed these summer annuals for 8 to 10 years. So I'm a pretty big fan. And there was another question. I think I'll just answer it kind of because I'm on the topic. about beans and following wheat. For me, the sorghum Sudan grass is just a no-brainer. It kind of gets us through the middle for us, our operation through August and September when I have the most fescue slump for me. It just fits our operation extremely well. And if you can get 100 and even 100 grazing days an acre off that Sudan grass, there's a lot of fescue in my area that producers don't even get half that. So an acre of Sudan grass is probably more effective than 2 acres of fescue. So as far as profitability versus beans, I think I can figure that pretty easily if you're, $3 an acre or $3 a head cow cost or something like that. That's significant. So plus it's probably quite a bit better for the ground than producing double crop beans. So for us, it's a big part of our operation.
Yeah, I think that was very, very true, and it was a great representation of kind of why you're doing what you're doing. Josh, did you have anything to add about getting your sheep, especially since you are the one not grazing cattle, and how that maybe has changed what they're consuming based on virtual fence?
Yeah, I was actually thinking about we grazed some tall sorghum Sudan this summer with our sheep as well. And it was kind of so getting sheep to get into anything above their head is always really hard. But some stuff got away from us. We actually kind of were a little creative with it. We started with a clear patch. And then we essentially backed up like moved them through with the virtual fencing, and we were able to actually graze like the entire pasture in a way that like pretty well utilize the sorghum Sudan and Korean Lespedeza pasture there in a way that we probably could have done it, but we would have had to go in and mow strips to get the sheep to even to jump into it. So like just the ability to do anything that we could with temporary fencing with less work, it typically works well. So.
Do any of our providers have any other fun stories that they've heard from producers utilizing this on kind of surrounding this topic of mature or larger plants that are being grazed?
I can speak from the targeted grazing for vegetation management. You're always grazing something unwanted, usually thorny and brushy and weedy. And um, a majority of our users are using these virtual fence collars for that exact reason, with great success. And, that is they're being able to save having to pull polywire or electronet through thorny understory, basically. And so that is a huge labor savings.
I think I have a question for our producer, Shelby, that I get a lot on a lot of different phone calls. To each of the producers, I think it'd be really fun to hear what advice would you give, like if someone called you on the phone this afternoon and was like, well, what's like the one thing I should know about virtual fence, or what's the one thing I should think about before like I invest in the technology? What advice would you give to somebody that just kind of called you up today? Because I know I am in fact responsible for giving your cell phone numbers out to a lot of people to make those phone calls. So I'm excited to hear what you have to say.
I guess I can start. I don't, for almost everyone I lead with, I don't know that virtual fence, at least in my neck of the woods, is just it's you still need somewhat perimeter fences, but it just is eye-opening the opportunities it arises. In the last 30 days since putting on these collars, my intention was just more management intensive grazing, but it has just opened my mind how well they work to what are some other things I can graze that I haven't thought about before, such as waterways or, in the middle of the summer and on row crop ground or I'm going to use mine to strip graze Milo this winter, and I've had some issues with that in the past. And I think the way these work, I think it'll eliminate a lot of those issues. So I think it's what you're not thinking about, as weird as that sounds to someone considering it.
I think that's great. I definitely think that's a way to get their brain spinning on all the different ways they could potentially utilize it. Josh, John?
I would agree with Chris about your imagination's a limit on this thing. And we've been doing this for 4 months and been talking to people doing it for a year. And every time you sit down and talk to somebody that's doing it, or you're thinking, you always come up with some new way you can do it. And just this past week, we was with a bunch of two other producers had it. And one thing, we haven't had any for a few years, but about 10 years ago, it seemed like we were getting ice storms regularly. And electric fence and bungee gates don't hold up very good in an ice storm, and that's something I never thought about. But when we got virtual fence, the cows can pretty well stay put, and that could be a huge benefit this winter. You never know what's coming, but it's just the things you can think of. And I was talking to some people yesterday, and probably one of the biggest issues for people to is they've run into is people that don't are just continuously grazing. They even sometimes just grasping the whole rotational grazing concept. We're, there's people doing virtual now. We just keep thinking of things, but if you just dumping cows out in a pasture and that's it for the year, it's a lot to take in to even look at doing this. It's a huge, I shouldn't say it's hard to do, but it's just so much to think about. And with all the possibilities of things, it's a lot to ponder when you start thinking about it. But I encourage, even if you're dumping 20 cows in a pasture and that's your things, it's sure still something to look at, because what you can benefit from it is huge. There's just a world of different benefits from it.
Yeah, and so I just to jump in on there, I think all of that for me says I would recommend people to go and see it. Like, to go and see like what you're looking to do in operation. If you're into sheep, come to see somebody who's using it with sheep or with cattle with like these other two guys or something like that. Not only would it help you get your mind going in different ways that you could think about using it and help you justify it with the numbers, but also like just putting like yourself in that scenario where you see it work. I think it can help maybe take away some of the like the worries and the concerns, and also like talk like I could be pretty honest, like if you're there like about with sheep, right? Because there's times when our sheep will run through different poly nets or they'll run through different things, and I can say, here's the scenario where this did work or where this didn't work. Here's where we're struggling, and so yeah, just the ability to go see it before you buy into it would be really helpful.
I think that's a really great point. That's a lot of what we're trying to do with the virtual fence program is give producers those opportunities to talk to producers like you guys and talk to the company reps and also go see it in action.
I'm going to flip that question a little bit that Caitlin kind of presented. So, what do you want your producers, whenever they're coming to you asking to, think about enrolling in this program? What is one thing that you want them to have thought about or bring to you to that conversation? And this is kind of to our reps.
Well, I'll jump in. I think for me, I just want to make sure that virtual fence is going to do what they want it to. And there's so many different reasons people are pursuing it. And so, and maybe sometimes they don't know totally what that reason is, but I want to make sure it's the right technology for them. And so it is a long process, just figuring out, from the first phone call to their purchase, but it's worth it. And also making sure they're comfortable with technology, because it is, I think all of the systems are pretty easy to figure out, but it's also a journey to learn, and you're not out there moving your fences, you're doing it from your computer or your phone. And so it's a very different way of managing. And I want to make sure they understand that is going to be a change too.
I'll kind of jump off of there. JC, I agree with that a lot, right? Like making sure that virtual fencing is going to be the right solution for what they're wanting and how they want to use it. Also, another one that I think is a great one for people to think about is in what ways are you going to see a benefit other than, say I'm going to gain an extra 20 pounds on my calves. What does that mean for you? Does that mean you're going to get to go to your kids' basketball games? You're going to get to spend Christmas morning a little bit longer and not have to go out and feed hay right away, check on the cows. So I think encouraging producers to look at it from, different points of view too, and what other ways, maybe indirectly is virtual fencing going to be a benefit.
I'll piggyback off Elena. That's exactly right. We like to ask about quality of life factors, and what value that brings to you and your family. It's hard to place a financial value on those types of on peace of mind, but that's a huge part of implementing and using virtual fence is you find those daily benefits. I will also say that for our existing customers, we are always actively wanting feedback to make improvements. And so we have a pretty active feedback loop from our customers.
Yeah. And everything that I've, heard and seen, it seems like all the companies are very happy and feeling and want a good relationship, and they want you guys to get really good experiences out of these, and they want to improve your quality of life. So just remember that as you're looking at this technology and kind of moving toward thinking about if it fits on your operation. I think that's really cool and very exciting.
I do have one question. So I get this, I'm in pretty rural counties, and so trying to, advertise and just talk about virtual fence is really novel. And so like for during calving season, like, if you have a heifer having trouble calving, can you see movement that would suggest, that cow's movement is low? Should I go, through the night, would that suggest that maybe she's having trouble calving? Do you think this technology can assist, with just simple animal movements that are off? Or maybe a lame cow or
So I had that picture on my slides that showed, I was looking for cows off by themselves. But then the eShepard, and I don't know about the other brands, but it also has a tracks feature where you can see where they've been, how often they're going places whenever they're checking in. And you can pretty well identify a cow that's not right pretty quickly from what I've noticed. And then what's more so, and I think John may have mentioned this, that it's made finding fall calves a lot easier because you can pull up tracks and be like, hey, that cow spent a lot of time in this corner. I'm gonna go look, the calf's probably there. It has helped.
Yeah, and so Nofence, the app sends notifications when it detects an anomaly. So when the pattern of behavior seems a bit off, you'll receive a notification.
We're running enough cows that don't necessarily track everything, but you do see things that are off. And I think one of the big things we'll see, and I know Halter, they got features we don't have turned on in the US yet that they have turned on New Zealand, but we're on the forefront of this. And I compare virtual fence to GPS on row crop tractors. 20, 25 years ago, we were using light bars. We were starting to hear about auto steer and things like that. Nowadays, if you find somebody row cropping that doesn't have auto steer on their tractor, they're a rarity. John Deere came out with, you're not even driving the combine this year. They're using satellite data and cameras to forecast what's coming to that combine. It's controlling itself. And I think 20 years from now, it's hard to say where we're at. There's just a world of features that are built into it yet, but are still in their infancy. But what the technology is going to be able to do 5, 10 years down the road, just going to be incredible. And I think we'll, through our fence system, we might be managing everything in our herd through one program. And I think it's very well possible. I know several of the companies are working on it, and it's going to offer a lot to small producers and to large producers to get all this information together in one spot and help us become better managers, more profitable, more sustainable.
Yeah, and from the sheep side, we actually had a time when we had every morning we had sheep getting like they would light up and say, "Hey," we get a text message and say, "Your sheep are outside the boundary. Sheep are outside the boundary," and it was always different sheep because we could tell which one it was. So we ended up going out early and watching, and we found like there's coyotes that were coming out that morning. So that enabled us to stop, or every morning that enabled us to stop, throw some extra dogs in that area for a time, and that completely stopped the problem. Like we probably wouldn't have seen that or known about that had it not been for the notification system that we got there. And like you said, John, that's just in the infancy of that. I would love to see as a tree planter, we do a bunch of orchard planting. I'd love to see like an RTK system where we get to sub-inch accurate like exclusion zones to where I can keep sheep or cattle off of trees that we plant. It would save a bunch of money in tree protection. So I think it's there. I ask people that all the time if they can do that, and that's my plug.
I think this is awesome. We're right at 1 o'clock, so we don't want to hold up anybody for the rest of their day. But I just want to say thank you so much to all of the virtual fence companies for joining us today, for all of the producers joining us. My contact information is here on this last slide. If you want to reach out to anybody that was on the webinar today, give me a shout. I know they're all more than willing to talk to you about virtual fence and how it can work on your own operation. And please scan the QR code and take our survey and let us know what you liked about the virtual fence series. And be on the lookout. We're starting to plan winter workshops and field days for next spring. So we're not going anywhere. The team's not going anywhere. We'll see y'all when we get kind of the next steps planned. So thank you to everybody that's been a part of our webinar series. And I think, Shelby, unless you have anything else to add, I think that's about it.
The only thing to add is another plug to take the survey. There's a question in there that asks what you want us to do next. So if you have a genius idea of what you want to see about virtual fencing, send it our way and we'll see if we can make it happen.
Awesome. Thank you so much, everybody. We appreciate you being here today. Have a great rest of your day.
Thanks all.